So what if life happens and you can't pay into your policy anymore? In the last video, we covered a scenario where I originally planned for a policy. I wanted to max fund it at $100K per year for 10 years. Then life happened and I had to stop after 2 years. What we're going to look at in this video is a similar scenario. We're actually going to build on the last video. Same policy, the individual wanting to pay into the policy for 10 years. But what does it look like if he says, you know what, life happened. I cannot fund it according to plan, which was the original $100,000 per year for 10 years. But I've already started the policy. However, I can still pay something. I don't know how much I can add, but I don't have to pay in zero. What does my policy look like if I pay in just the minimum? Or how much do I need to pay in order to still maximize the performance? This is something that's very beneficial to be aware of. For example, you may have a plan to maximize a policy or max fund it at $100K per year for 10 years. Maybe it's $10K per year for 10 years. The numbers are relative as long as the policy is set up properly. But let's say we only get money in the first year, $100K for the first year only, and then I have to only pay the minimum, or I can only pay the minimum. You don't have to, but let's assume you can only pay the minimum. Will the policy still perform at a high level? Will it still break even right around year 5 or so? Or would it make more sense to be able to max fund the policy for perhaps the first and second year if I have the means, maybe the first 3 years? We're going to look at different options just to provide awareness, because a question that comes up when people run into this situation where life happens is, I just want to know how I can still maximize the policy. What can I do on my end as the policyholder, because I have control of that, in order to still get the most out of this policy, taking into consideration that life has happened, because life does happen to everyone. So what we're going to look at in this particular case study is as follows. Same exact policy. I'm going to pull that up to start things off with, but with the funding. We're going to see what the policy looks like if he gets $100,000 into the policy only the first year, and then pays just above the minimum premium each year thereafter. Then what does it look like if he's able to get $100,000 into the policy during the first 2 years, then also during the first 3 years, and then just the minimum? Seeing different options up front is beneficial. We can also look at this after we start a policy as well. So if you're in this situation right now and you have to pivot to say, hey, I planned for the best, the worst has happened, what will my policy look like from a growth perspective? Hopefully this video will provide some value. So let's have some fun and look at the numbers. What we'll begin with is the original plan. So his original plan was to do what? We've got a 45-year-old individual, wants to fund the policy at $100,000 per year. A lot going on this illustration. Net premium or net after-tax outlay, this represents the exact same thing, exact same dollar figure that is. So we've got the $100K per year going in, nothing thereafter. Now, what's very important in a life happens scenario, or any scenario in my opinion, but particularly if life happens and I can't fund the policy anymore, or I want to pay just the minimum, the question that comes up is, what is the minimum? Well, the policy design is extremely important here. So of this $100,000, if I'm you, before I even start the policy, the question I would ask is, where's my money going? Because it can go toward two main areas, the insurance premium or the PUA rider. There's a term insurance rider attached as well. I'm going to walk through that here. But as we look at this chart, here's your premium, $10,000 per year. That's the minimum commitment in this particular example. In fact, if we scroll up, because we wrote down $12,000 for the minimum earlier, just about that. So we've got a 45-year-old individual, preferred health class, that's the second best health rating. Here's the premium piece. Where's the money going? $10,000. And then here's that paid up additions rider, that PUA rider. We'll sometimes refer to this as a cash dump-in. This is the way to accelerate the cash value growth on a life insurance policy, particularly the guarantees when you look at that and actual performance, not projections, but when we look at reality. Now, that full $90,000 is not going toward PUAs in this example. There is what is called a term insurance rider, which we'll see right here under the target additional benefit term. This is a term insurance rider, which is a cost-effective way to raise the death benefit. When you add those two together, we have 2.8 million, which we'll see down here. You can see I'm going to scroll down in a second. But the reason for adding that term insurance is it raises the death benefit. If we don't care about the death benefit, that raises my MEC limit, which prevents a taxable event. That's the importance there. We've got other content that really goes into detail on that as well. But there is a cost for this term rider. And here we go. $1,270, so about $1,300 per year. So the plan here was to do what for this individual? $100,000 per year for 10 years. If he gets $100K in just in the first year, for example, year 2, he can't pay anything into it, then what? What's the minimum? If he says, hey, I can still pay something, what would the true minimum be in this particular example? The base premium and the cost of the term rider. He technically doesn't even have to cover the cost of the term rider. He can allow the dividends and interest to cover it, but if he wants to cover that out of pocket to prevent any drag on the policy, his true minimum is just over 11 grand, so we rounded up to $12,000. And you'll see that when we look at the examples. That's where we get the 12K from. So let's take a look here. What I will pull up first is just a simplified version. In our last video, if you've seen that, we looked at what? First, this example. This is what we just looked at. This is that same policy, but just plopped onto Excel for simplicity. There's your 100K per year for 10 years. First year cash value, 82,000 and change. Breaking even, just about year 5. You're positive year 6, meaning you've got more money in cash value than what you have paid into the policy. So we looked at this in the last video. What else did we look at though? The first what if scenario. What if life happens and I can't fund it at the same $100,000 per year? For 10 years, that is. So same policy here, but what it looks like if we stop paying after only 2 years. So identical policies. This was equipped to handle $100,000 per year for 10 years, and you can see that the first and second year, cash value and death benefit are identical here. Exact same policy. The only difference is this. 0 out of pocket beginning year 3. What's happening here is that $10,000 premium plus the cost of the term rider, that is still due in this example, but we are not paying it out of pocket. What's happening in this case is that the dividends and interest in the policy are covering it for us, and then we still have money left over that results in our cash value appreciating northward, which is exactly what we want to see. And then after the first 7 years, we remove the term rider, reduce the death benefit. A simple way to explain this is that we minimize the insurance expenses to maximize the cash value growth with zero intention of ever paying another dollar into the policy, just maximizing what we had. That was all based on the present dividend interest rate. Now, what does it look like based on the guarantees? Remember this? Here we go. So exact same policy, but looking at a worst case scenario, providing that additional awareness. This is good to ask for. It is an absolute worst case scenario when policies are properly designed. With the major mutual companies, we've seen them consistently deliver greater than the guarantees. And you can search historical performance on our YouTube channel and you'll see videos that validate that. But when looking at worst case scenarios, nothing wrong with that at all. Here we go. When's your break-even point? Based on the worst case scenario, if I fund it for the full 10 years, between years 10 and 11. If you only fund it for 2 years, the nice thing about this is based on the guarantees, I'm not required to pay anything into it. Because I minimized that premium down to 10%, if life happens, it puts me in a great position where the policy can cover that premium, meaning I don't have to pay anything out of pocket. I don't have to utilize a premium loan to have the policy borrow against itself to cover the premium. 0 out of pocket. And it does still appreciate. Takes a long time. Not that attractive at all in my opinion, but it does still appreciate. I don't see it blow up or anything like that. When I say blow up, the policy does not lapse or carry a large loan balance from having to borrow against itself. So, a lot of info there. Let's look at some additional scenarios here. So, what we'll look at next, what if life happens? We've got the same scenario on the left here. There's my plan, 100K per year for 10 years. So things do not go according to plan. I can only pay into it for 1 year. What happens here? So exact same policy when I take a look. In the planned example, 100K, year one, I've got $82,000 in change. Life happens. I get 100K in the first year, I've got $82,000 in change. Then we'll assume I can only pay the minimum premium, $12,000. We rounded it up a little bit. So he's paying 12 grand each year. He does have the option to add more. So if things suddenly get better at any point in time, he comes into a windfall, his cash flow recovers, he can begin to add money to this policy again, up to the 100K. He can even make up for lost time by making MEC catch-up payments. That's another topic though. My point here is, what does it look like if he cannot add any more money? Just the minimum $12,000 per year payment. So year one, he had 82. Year two, he pays in $12,000. What happens here? He gets that back and a little bit more if we isolate the payment just for that year. If we would have only gotten $12,000 back, that would be what? About $94,000 in change, just about 95K. Okay, so at least he's getting the minimum premium payment back, and it's getting better and better each year. This way, he feels like he's not just dumping money down the drain. It's actually there, accessible for him, which is important to hit on, because if life does happen, and I still want to pay something in, if life happens, that means my cash flow is likely tight. So if I need access to the money I pay into the policy, having that peace of mind that it's there goes a long, long way, and I don't feel like this is an expense or anything like that. If you structure it properly, it's not an expense. It initially is with the upfront hit, but aside from that, you can recover that fairly quickly. But we do see here, if I just fund the maximum in year one only, and then the minimum thereafter, takes 8 years to get your money back based on the current dividend interest rate. If we looked at the guarantees, that would be extended further out. It would be beyond year 10 like the last example we looked at. Now, this will get interesting. What does it look like? Come on. There we go. If he's able to max fund the policy for 2 years, not just one, here's where, from a policy performance standpoint, things get very interesting. What do you notice? 100K years 1 and 2. There's your funding. Exactly $180,000 in year 2. This will actually match the example on the far left, which was the original plan, because he's sticking to the original plan for the first and second year in this example. Beginning year 3, however, he funds just the minimum $12,000 per year. Option to add more, but just continues to fund the 12. There we go. So he pays in 12. He gets his 12 back and a little bit more. And he's just about positive year 5. He's paid in 236. He's got 233. By year 6, he's positive. Similar to the example on the far left, where the plan was to fund it at 100K per year for 10 years. The sweet spot when it comes to max funding, I shouldn't say sweet spot, the threshold, how to get myself into the safety zone and see an early break-even point, see the policy perform at a level where most people are satisfied with it, similar to the original plan, is this. If you're able to max fund a policy, meaning fund it up to the maximum PUA limit that the company offers, in this example, 10x the base premium, and also up to the MEC limit, that will put you in a position where more often than not, you'll see an early break-even point, very close to what the original plan was, the first and second year. Often when I have conversations with people we've been working with for a while, if life does happen, they need to kick down their payments, but they've been able to max fund the first and second year, what I'll always let them know is, you've done a great job already, particularly because you've max funded it the first and second year. Even if you can't pay another penny into it, you're still going to see it perform at a strong level, early break-even point. You've done a good job maximizing it the first and second year. Those are the most critical, really, when you look at the performance and the break-even point. Now, follow-up question here is, can it look any better? The answer is yes. So we're going to look at one more sheet here of different options. So we're going to start with this guy, which is what we left off with in the last example. So So going back to the last example, 100K years 1 and 2, and then 12K per year thereafter. And we continue the payments up until age 65. You can stop them earlier, but just for the sake of this example, what's it look like if I keep funding the minimum up until 65? So that's where we left off with. Next tab, same thing. Breaking even between years 5 and 6, just like the last example. Can we make it better? What does it look like if I'm able to get that 100K per year in for 3 years? Not the original plan of 10 years, $1 million, but just for the first 3. What do things look like, better or worse? One more click, there we go. Okay, so here we go. 100K, years 1, 2, 3. What do you notice here? Break even is now a clean year 5. Look at that. You've paid in $324 in total payments, and you've got $325 in cash value. Again, based on the present dividend interest rate, which we've seen this company perform, this is Guardian, and all of the major mutuals for that matter, but strong performance. Max funding it for 3 years puts me in a great position. If I want to take it a step further, what does it look like if I stop funding altogether after 3 years? Meaning, here, I continue to pay the 12K per year in. What's it look like if we do this? This is fun, right? So same thing here. Only difference is we're going to stop the payments altogether after 3 years. So now you've gotten $300,000 into the policy. By year 3, you've paid in $300,000. You have $280,000 in cash value. Year 4, you pay in 0. The premium is being paid by dividends and interest. The same is true of year 5. However, year 5, your cash value exceeds your total payments of $300,000. So you're cash positive at this point in time. There's something else I want to hit on here. You may have caught this. Look at the death benefit year 3 to 4. So what we did in this particular case is reduce it. A $2.8 million death benefit for a 45-year-old male gives us a MEC limit of over $150,000. We overinflated it here. Why we did that is because his original plan was to fund the policy at $100,000 per year for 10 years. So in order to prevent a modified endowment contract and really structure the policy with enough term insurance so he can fund it for 10 years, we had to add more term and overinflate that MEC limit. However, life happened and he said, hey, I think we set up a policy, or I should say, as the agent, I said, we set up a policy that was too big based on what the actual plan has been. Meaning I planned to fund it for 10 years, I only funded it for 3 years. If I could rewind the clock, I would set this policy up with a clean $100,000 MEC limit. And for a $100,000 MEC limit, guess how much life insurance I need for a 48-year-old male? Exactly $1.8 million. That gives me a MEC limit of just over 100K. So when we are reducing the death benefit, especially in the first 7 years, you've got to be careful of this. But what you can do is reduce the death benefit, which will reduce the MEC limit. We cannot drop that MEC limit any lower than any of the prior year's payments. So for example, if I paid in $150,000 in year 1, or any years 1 through 7, I could not drop that death benefit because I've already funded up to the MEC limit. That $2.8 million gave me that $150,000 MEC limit. So, because we did not fund up to the MEC limit, we funded $100,000 per year, that's the max. This policy can proceed forward with a $100,000 MEC limit. So what we did here was drop the death benefit to reduce expenses and improve cash value growth. Continues to appreciate over time. Now, this is always a case-by-case decision. The reason why is making these kinds of changes do restrict the amount of money that you can pay into the policy in the future. So if he was still doing this, what we see on the left, still paying in $12K and said, hey, I might want the option to slug more money into the policy down the road, then we would not reduce that death benefit. because we're reducing the term rider, we're reducing the base premium, and we're limiting or restricting how much we can get into the policy. However, if life happens and he says, I don't want to pay anything else into it, or the maximum I want to pay in is $20,000 or $30,000 in the future, well, in this particular case, then we can peel things back. If we start a policy where we fund up to the MEC limit right off the bat, we can't make a change like this. But it's just knowing what levers to pull. So in the event that we run into that situation, we can make the pivots needed to still maximize the cash value growth without any out-of-pocket commitment or minimum out-of-pocket commitments. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I know we got a little technical at the end. Point there, or main point just to remember, is changes can often be made. If you plan to max fund the policy with a lot of money, but life happened and you cannot do it, have a discussion with your agent. Let them know. Ask what can be done with your existing policy. Always ask that, what can be done with the existing policy before considering a 1035 exchange. My opinion, in these situations, a 1035 exchange is often a last resort because I'm starting a new policy, going through new expenses again. If I can salvage or make adjustments to an existing policy without triggering a MEC or anything like that, that will put me as the policyholder in the best possible position where I can continue to experience strong cash value growth. So I just want to have a discussion there. And as an agent, I just want to make sure that I'm aware of all of the different levers and options that are available with the particular company that the individual is in, the policyholder is in. This way, everything's set up properly. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I always like talking about this stuff. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more. And if you have questions, please leave them in the comments below or email us directly. And I hope this helps. Again, thank you so much. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.